Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining this live. My name is Carol, I am the founder of Parentally, and we are a platform connecting parents with all the extra care and support they may need during pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and the first years of parenthood. So we share access to community, to information, and also to all the professionals who can support parents on their journey. I don't know if the sound is good. Anyway, sorry. So, for instance, doulas, childbirth educators, lactation consultants, and of course, postpartum care providers. So I'm very happy to be doing this live with you today. Our guest is Catarina Lapão. You are a postpartum care provider. Just before we get started, I just wanted to share that this live is recorded and that we will share it on our YouTube channel and also on Instagram. Please make sure to subscribe and to follow us at parentally.nl. And now, Catarina, I would like to give you the floor. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Catarina. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, perfect.
My name is Catarina. I am from Portugal. I'm Portuguese. I live in the Netherlands for about 5 years, and I've been working as a massage therapist and some other manual techniques for over 10 years. And in the last 4 years, I began all of this work diving into birth world and postpartum, and it's just a big passion that I have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I think that's something that you share really well, your patience for your work. I'm very happy that you are part of our network on Parentally, Catarina. And so before we really start talking about preparing for postpartum, can you tell us what is postpartum exactly and why is it so important in the life of new mothers and newborns?
Yeah, I just would like first to also to centering and to allow me to land
Yes.
here to acknowledge my teachers and especially from the postpartum Rochelle Garcia Seliga and Silvia Urbani, and in this last year from the pre and perinatal psychology Christiana Dijkerman. That has been, my work is shaped by their work, and not just my work but also my personal life, and all of the people that all over my life have been supporting me, and that's why today I'm actually able to be here. So in relation to your question, can you repeat it again?
I asked you what is actually, what do we mean when we talk about postpartum, and why is it so important?
So postpartum is the period of time that begins just after birth. And there is this initial postpartum period that can go 1 month, 1 month and a half, that is pretty much to allow the woman to recover physically, then to be able to keep moving with life or the new life. And postpartum period actually it's a phase of a woman's life that will end. It's very unique for each woman, can last 1 year, usually 2, 3. I heard many women, including talking about that 7 years. That is when it comes the time that the woman feels herself again, like a part of the baby, a part of the diet of the mama baby. So it's a very important period in a woman's life that really needs so much support and care, and being acknowledged that life does not come back to how it was.
And you hear a lot of, women talking about clapping back right after postpartum, but it is very rarely the reality. What are, in your experience, what are the most common challenges that the new mothers face in postpartum?
I guess it's not really knowing what is postpartum. It's the understanding that, or it's the belief that it's going to be, everything will come back to normal and life will keep moving the same way as before, just with a baby. But that's just not the reality. And also then all of the pressures that exist in society for women to come back. So it's an inner work that begins with so much judgments of not being able to keep moving. And so there is this big misinformation of things are different, and it needs different approaches, and it needs different support. And it's also, it's a big
it's a big transition, yes. And I would like to, it's true, it's a major life transition, and you will hear a lot of people say you're going to be on cloud nine and it's going to be amazing. And of course, it's a beautiful time, but also filled with challenges. So you have chosen to become a postpartum care provider. Can you please tell us more about what this means exactly, what it is that you do?
Yeah, I support mothers with body work after birth. I can be present inclusive in birth because I also work with the placenta. So receiving the placenta and bringing the medicine that the placenta brings us. And I support with body work, with listening and just listening over and over and over what needs to be listened to and what needs to be acknowledged without any judgment. Because so many things, so many feelings that exist, mothers really fear to say because in their heads is so small, but nothing is small. Everything is big and everything needs to be acknowledged and supported. I also provide and then support with the closing of the bones already in the end of the initial postpartum period. So I do a lot of body work and with this emotional support that also links with how to support the baby, how to be present for the baby and understanding the birth from baby's perspectives as well. That brings another different layer that is not just what we think that we know and what is our rhythms, but also knowing the baby and how to begin to have the life and our rhythm according with baby's rhythm as well.
And so what's the difference between what you are offering and the Kramzor? So is that at the same time, like practically, if a new family wanted to, I'm asking this question because honestly, until very recently, I didn't know what a postpartum care provider was, and I was so amazed. So I think it's really interesting if you explain exactly how how can people call you?
So the support that I provide as a postpartum doula, we can call it postpartum doula, is specifically for the physiological needs of the mother. So I'm going to be present and do the body work that the mother needs. If it was a C-section birth, we can tend to the C-section. We have to from the beginning. So it's the emotional support and the understanding of what is needed in this moment. I think the Kramzorgs come and organize a little bit the family, and it's a little bit more, how do I say it, not practical because my work is very practical, but it's tending to the mother's needs, to the body, to the emotional and the baby. So I'm there to also to bring understandings in how other people can support the mother, for the mother to be able to rest.
Okay, so you can come for like several days, several hours, yeah.
Ideally, I have for 3 ways to support mothers. The shortest way is 1 time a week, and I do 3 hours each time because it's the postpartum, initial postpartum is just so tender that the rhythm it's really slow. And I heard so many times that the week seems like the same day because there is so much openness in the spiritual and emotional level and the body. Everything just opens so much that it needs to have like really tender and slow support. So I do this support with mothers weekly, how many sessions to have, but it's really specifically for the body work and the emotional support. And in the end, I do the closing of the bones. That doesn't have necessarily to be the end, but when it marks a specific time, I counted if it was 36 weeks when mother had the baby, I counted 36 days for that initial postpartum period, and there is a closing of the bone, that there is a ceremony that marks the end of that initial postpartum, of receiving the baby, of the new life, of the body that doesn't carry the baby inside, but carry the baby outside, and to be acknowledged. Because when we acknowledge all of these at the emotional and spiritual level, the body also heals quicker because there is support from all parts.
I'm not sure everyone knows what is the closing of the womb, so maybe you can explain a little bit.
Yeah, closing of the bones, it's a closing ceremony that usually tends to last 3 to 4 or to 5 hours, and it can be more people, or just like if there is the father want to be present, or people that the mother wants them to be present as well. It's a ceremony that it has, the way they are doing it is with body work. It's also with a human temescal, that it's with vapor, water, steaming, and so that it's really slow for the mother to feel the passage. And we also go through the birth story, and sometimes the baby is present, and every time that the baby needs to be tended, we stop and the baby is tended and comes. And it's beautiful because babies also tell their story. And in these particular ceremonies, when the mother tells her story, then when I ask the baby what he feels, sometimes there is huge release cries, because the baby is just releasing what he has been through as well into the birth. So it's a very simple in a way ceremony, then with some scarves that we just pull in some places. It's a very simple in a way, but very deep, and it's really beautiful to acknowledge this passage. It's a right passage, so it stopped the pregnancy, it's over, and there is a baby outside, and the mother is a new person.
And you at the beginning of this live, you mentioned, like very rightfully so, that's what's one of the challenges from postpartum, is that you don't really know what to expect, and I totally agree. And like, according to you, what are the main aspects that maybe a new mother or even her partner should pay attention to during this phase?
It's so rest. Mothers needs rest. The body needs to rest after a major experience. There is, and for the women's body to come back to a pre-pregnancy phase, it will take weeks. It's just how the body works. So how much more rest a mother can have, ideal, and this talking about weeks. So then the question is, how do we create circumstances that allow mother to rest? So how can they begin to think of this before? So how to prepare for postpartum? So, and that is one of my main points in my work, is actually to bring the intention for postpartum planning begins in pregnancy, and begins in pregnancy in the beginning of the third trimester, even in the second trimester, and understanding that also, because when we talk about second trimester, anything can happen, but all types of pregnancy also end in postpartum. So it's always needs it's always need to tend to, and how to create the circumstances for the mother to have the rest that she needs, for the house to be clean. Like, what is the priorities of this family, of each family, and how to meet their priorities, knowing that mother will need the time to not do anything unless to tend to the baby and to bond with the baby and connect with this baby that is just coming in.
What about the emotional and mental aspects?
So without rest, the body is expending so much energy. It is expending energy that doesn't have. And when our body doesn't feel well emotionally, we are going to not to feel confident in what we are doing, because the body needs to rest for us to be able to actually do things that allow us to feel good. So emotionally, the lack of support and the lack of rest, the lack of good food, even that prioritizing rest and emotional support, we can eat not that good. And if we have these other two layers, we are well emotionally, because that's what we need, to have people around us that support our resting, and also support just with simple question, how are you feeling, and just receiving them, because without coming with judgments, or without coming with the phrase, but your baby is well, so you should be well. It's like, no, yes, so beautiful that the baby is well, but if a mother doesn't feel well. So how to actually just hold these feelings and these emotions, and these will support the mother to actually not to enter, because the postpartum, there is so many people that postpartum is, the definition is the postpartum depression. And postpartum is a period of time that all women go through after giving birth. So the postpartum depression, it happens with the lack of support also physical, emotional, because everything is connected. I get weaker and weaker and weaker if I don't rest. I get weaker and weaker and weaker if I don't have people supporting me and what I'm doing. And especially in these times of such vulnerability, it's very easy to fall down into the spiraling and then get the label of postpartum depression. And then from there, just going to taking medicines or that it's not really supporting the root cause of what is actually lacking for a woman to actually to thrive.
I understand. And then you mentioned the postpartum plan, and actually that's really the idea of this live, to really look into what are maybe some tips or some strategies that you could share with our followers to actually prepare for postpartum in pregnancy.
Yes, I guess preparing for postpartum, it's the awareness that everything will change and understand that how can I rest? How can I have food? Like preparing food for cooking, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, I don't know, 100 meals, if it's possible to have them stored and to store them before postpartum begin. So really having like these logicals and asking people if people can come and to organize the house one time, for example, or do the cleaning. How can a mother rest, and how to prepare for actually to have 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of not having to do the house chorings, ideally not having to work, and how to have someone actually around that they can just speak. How can they have like, and this is for fathers as well, how can they have at least a telephone number of list of people that they can call and just saying, I'm overwhelmed, this is too much for me. Just having people to contact with, and then to organize, to really think about that the body really needs care, the body really needs body work, and how to manage with, some people will have more access to it than others, but how can we actually look at what we have and what we are spending the money in and prioritize our health. How can others can actually prioritize receiving body work, because the body really, really needs it. It's not my teacher Rochelle, she says it's not a luxury, it's really a necessity. And how much more we get into this understanding that we really need this support, because then this period of time that is 1 month, 1 month and a half depending, finishes, and the women have the opportunity to actually to come out of it feeling a new person from a beautiful and a glowing place, but with a baby, and instead of going into the depression.
And so you mentioned how let's say, how far in advance can you already start thinking about this?
I think the thinking can be since the beginning.
Yes.
Like, this is going to change. Like, for example, a woman is pregnant, second trimester, and beginning to think, okay, what do I need now? Which person am I going to talk with to support me for postpartum? Which person am I going to talk to support me for preparing for postpartum? And how to prepare for postpartum the same way that women actually prepare for birth. Because there is so much awareness and so many offers, and that's beautiful. So how to do that also for postpartum, and it's beginning to understand with who do I resonate that I want to be taken care of, because that's really something really important. It's to work with people and to find practitioners to work with us that we really feel safe with them. And if we don't feel safe, also to have also be able to actually say, okay, this is not what I want, I'm going to find somebody else. So yeah, sooner as possible to begin to think and to find people and to ask, to write to you, for example. It's that's why the Parentally that has so many practitioners, there's practitioners for everyone.
And for the partners who want to be involved in this planning, what can they do exactly?
Well, the planning, for example, I have I offer a planning for the 4th trimester, and the planning that I offer is for the mothers, the fathers, and their families.
Oh, awesome!
Yes, because this is a family matter.
Yes.
And that is this is one of the places that we've come so far in society, that there is the mother and the father, and we stop having families. So it's like how to bring them all back together, and understanding things that my parents didn't know, that before my parents didn't know, but that we actually now have access to them, and how to implement them slowly. And there are people that will not understand or agree, and that's fine too, because we need that. But at least to be talked about and to bring people together, families, and then they can eventually, they will do the best that they can with what they have. I'm sure about that. Yeah.
And it's true with our international families that it's always a big discussion after birth, like who is going to come over and for how long, and do we really want it or not? So it's good to plan this in advance. But thank you so much, Catarina. I think this is very useful. Before we end this live, I wanted to ask you, what is your golden tip for future mothers and future parents?
Yes, I have a couple. That
Great.
Like the first one that came up is to have a to-do list for rest, because to implement rest in our daily, so many people have to-do lists to do this, to actually to have a schedule, a to-do list of a schedule for resting during the day, like 5 minutes, for example, or a nap, but to actually begin to implement these, because this will change like everything. And then coming into postpartum, there is a bigger understanding of the necessity of rest. So that's something really big. And then I wrote something here that I have to go. Yeah, it's to prepare for the postpartum the same way or to think about preparing for postpartum the same way as preparing for birth, and to remember or to acknowledge that babies feel everything, and babies are part of the process, and we can bring them in a conscious way, and they will participate in birth. And then also, of course, the bonding will be different. So also then for being in postpartum, bonding with the baby in the beginning of the pregnancy in a conscious way will really support everything, the pregnancy, the birth itself, and being in postpartum. And yeah, for people my third, it would be really for people to see, to understand that the body really needs support, and to look at how they spend money, and to prioritize the health, especially giving postpartum in the initial postpartum. Yes, not to leave it for 8 weeks after, when it's possible to move the house, not to receive postpartum in the house.
And I think this is not something that we necessarily think about, like that comes very obvious when you just had a baby. But I think that's a very precious advice. And I also love the advice about time blocking rests. That's a great thing. I will still do it myself too. Thank you so much, Catarina, for your time and for sharing your expertise with us. And this very precious advice. I don't know if maybe we have a little bit of time to take some questions from the viewers. We still have a few minutes, so if you have a question, please write them in the comments. Otherwise, so this live has been recorded, and I will share it in coming days, along with all the contact details of Catarina, of course, if you want to contact her directly. Thank you so much for watching this new live session. Thank you so much, Catarina. I was very happy to do this with you. I don't see any questions, so I want to thank you, everyone, and see you next time for a new live session. Goodbye.